Okay, welcome to week 10 of our Common Core Science and Religion course. So we've looked so far at the nature of science, the nature of religion, the nature of truth, the nature of reality, the nature of persons and objects. Now, we're going to get on to the nature of knowledge, what we mean when we say we know something. And the rough setup for the next couple of lectures, just so you can see where we're going and how this fits together, is when we know something, first of all, we get some information from somewhere. And then we take those bits of information and we put that information together somehow. So a grand idea of the world is not little bits, but some connection of all of those different ideas. And then we can turn around and we can say, okay, we've got this information, we put it together, we have a sanity check. Do we think that our conclusions make any sense? So over the next 3 lectures, we're going to take this piece by piece. And for a variety of reasons, we're going to switch these two round. So the logic says bits of information, put them together, check our answer. But in presenting this, we're going to look first of all at how we put information together, assuming we can get it from somewhere. And then in the next lecture, we're going to look at where the information actually comes from. So here we go. There are 2 basic ways in which people put information together. So the first one is foundationalism. Foundationalism says that any statement must be justified by a more basic statement or be properly basic in itself. And by properly basic, what we mean is obvious beyond question. It has to be the kind of statement that no right-thinking person can possibly disagree with. Okay, so let's give an example of this. So if I say, I am in Hong Kong, fair enough. On what grounds might I think that to be true? Why might I know that? Well, I am here, and here is Hong Kong. I can take my statement, I am in Hong Kong, and I can break it down into smaller statements. Now, I am here is obvious beyond question. Obviously, I'm here. And here is Hong Kong. Well, that's not obvious beyond question. Some right-thinking person might say, are you sure you're sitting in front of a green screen? Well, let's break that down. Okay, so here is Hong Kong U, and Hong Kong U is in Hong Kong. Okay, now Hong Kong U is in Hong Kong. That's obvious enough. Otherwise, they'd have called it Oxford University or something else. Okay, Hong Kong U is in Hong Kong. Good. Here is Hong Kong. Well, that's not obvious beyond possible doubt. I could have a green screen anyway. Okay, so there was a sign on my way in. There was a sign that said Hong Kong U. And signs that say you are now in Hong Kong U are in Hong Kong U. Okay, no one's going to disagree with that. That's basic and obvious beyond question. And I've not left campus since I saw this sign. Right. And I can break that down. I can say, okay, it says security on the campus exits. And if I'd left, I would have seen the security guards. I'd have walked past them, I'd have noticed them, and I didn't see them. So each of these, boom, 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 these are obvious beyond question. These are foundational statements that no right-thinking, sensible person who understands how the world works could possibly disagree with. And from these, I can build up to the statement, I'm in Hong Kong. Right? So all statements are either justified by more basic statements or they are properly basic in themselves. Now, when you are having a discussion with someone, if I want to demonstrate I'm in Hong Kong and we're using foundationalist logic, what I do is I say, here is my statement, I break it down, we get to properly basic statements. And if they're not sure, well, if they disagree with any of my properly basic statements, then either they're not a right-thinking person, because right-thinking people agree with basic statements, or my statement wasn't properly basic, because a right-thinking person has just disagreed with it. So we just have to go down further and further until we find a properly basic statement that they agree with. And then from that, I can build up and I can say this means this, means this, means this. And if they're not sure, if they don't agree with me, then the way I convince them is I return to the bottom and I say this means this, means this. And if they're still not sure, I say it all over again, but slower and louder. So how do we think of this? What's a sort of model by which we can think of this? Okay, so this is our building metaphor illustrated, right? This is our foundation. This is our basic idea. And if I take an argument and I place it on there, so any argument I have is either properly basic or it rests on something which is properly basic. And when I construct an argument, I either have to put something connected to an idea which is connected to something that's properly basic, or I have to have a thing which is properly basic itself. And when I build my argument like this, then this can be traced down to something which is properly basic. And if it turns out that one of these steps fails, so as I build my idea, now if this is my argument, now if one of these steps fail, let's say for example this one turns out to be wrong, or this connection here turns out to be wrong, when I take that away, now I've just shown that this is problematic, but I have to throw away everything else there because my little blue block on top is no longer justified by something properly basic because it's floating in the air. So once I've falsified this bit here, everything above it I have to throw away. So this is a foundational argument. And so we find these building metaphors throughout language. So for example, if I have here, we build an argument, we construct an argument. Someone might complain that we are on shaky ground, or that our argument needs to move to firmer ground. Someone coming against us can undermine our argument, and then we can buttress our ideas with other arguments. So these are all building metaphors. Even the university, when they speak of a capstone project, they think of ideas as a building. So within this foundationalist model, where we have our argument and then each thing is connected securely to our ground, what can we then say? Well, if I say I am in Hong Kong, okay, what I mean by that is I know I'm in Hong Kong, right? I don't say I'm in Hong Kong if I really don't know I'm in Hong Kong. This statement is justified exactly because it goes down to something certain. There's no way that this can hold and I'm not in Hong Kong, right? So I know that I'm in Hong Kong and I'm certain that I'm in Hong Kong. I can't be like, maybe I'm in Hong Kong. I either know it or I don't know it, okay? If this is not traceable to this, then I don't know it. And if it is traceable to this, then I do know it and I'm certain of it. And it's true that I'm in Hong Kong. I don't say, I know I'm in Hong Kong, but it's not true that I'm in Hong Kong. Obviously, I know it exactly because it's true, and I can be certain of it exactly because I know it. And I am in Hong Kong because it's true that I'm in Hong Kong, right? So let's look at this again. So here we have a foundationalist argument where all statements are either justified by a more basic statement or they are properly basic in themselves, which is to say obvious beyond question. Now, I don't know if any of you have kids or any of you have nieces and nephews, but if they're about 4 years old, there is nothing in the world which is obvious beyond question, because there's this wonderful game called Why, right? I'm in Hong Kong. Why? Because I'm here and here is Hong Kong. Why? Because I'm in Hong Kong U. Why? Because there was a sign and I haven't. Why? Right. And we go down and there is no point at which they go, oh yeah, all right. You go, look, there are security guards on the campus exit. Why? So the history's greatest philosophers have just been floored by a 4-year-old child. And of course, their get out clause was to say, yes, but this is obvious beyond question by all reasonable people. And 4-year-old children aren't reasonable people. But let's just for 1 second follow with our 4-year-old. What happens if we dig down further? Okay, so there's security on campus exits. And we can trace that to more basic statements because regulations require the security on the exits. And this is a place that follows regulations. Okay, well, can we trace that to more basic things? Is it obvious that this is a place that follows regulations? Yes, because we're in Hong Kong. Of course, Hong Kong follows regulations. except that this isn't a more basic statement. This is circular. If we allow this argument, then we've just said that we've allowed circularity in our logic. And there are people who say that's okay. This is a coherentist view. So within coherentism, a collection of statements is justified if it is coherent. That means if it's internally self-consistent. We don't bother just digging down until we find something obvious. None of the statements need to be obvious. They just need to hang in together with all the rest. Okay, so if we had a building metaphor for foundationalism, what's our metaphor for coherentism? Well, let's say it's something like a weaving a piece of cloth. So, you know, we can, and we see this in language as well. We weave together ideas. We hope we don't lose the thread of our argument. Once we finish, we want to tie up some loose ends. Someone might come and try and unpick our argument, and then we see all of our ideas unravel. So just as we see these building metaphors turn up in language, which come from this foundationalist idea, we also see this weaving metaphor turn up in language, which comes from this coherentist metaphor. Now, if I try and unpick something, so with my building blocks, right, one bit comes off and everything that's attached to it is gone. Okay, but if I try and unpick something, I mean, let's take if I try and unpick this, then I can sort of pick away at it, but someone's just put a hole in my argument, so to speak. But the nothing's fallen off, not in the same way as my foundationist argument does. I can unpick good chunks of this, and this bit of my shirt doesn't hang on to any other single other bit of my shirt. So even when I break one piece away, unlike with my Lego model, one piece breaks away and still it's a shirt. It's just a shirt with a hole in it, right? And so in the same way, my argument can have a hole in it without being utterly destroyed. And then with fixing my hole, I mean, I can take a piece of thread and I can sew up my hole. There we go, and I can try and fix that. Now I don't have to throw away my entire argument. I can just try and fix it. Now it might be that the fix is a bit messy and it's a bit ugly, but that's okay because the important thing is my argument hangs together. Now, there we go. Now, as these things go on, the thing can become more and more unraveled, and we say, well, at what point do I have to throw my argument away? And it's not, at this point, it's not that you know, this is not attached to here. Whereas the point where you choose to throw your shirt away is not the point at which you say, well, okay, it's just not attached. And I could take my shirt here and I could make a pretty big hole in it, right? And the point at which we abandon the shirt is not the point at which you know, it's there you go. So it's not the point at which it's no longer attached. It's the point at which we just say this is not something I'm prepared to wear out in public anymore. So, and in the same way with our arguments, when we have a coherentist argument, you can say, okay, well, I've not utterly destroyed my argument. It's just not something that I'm particularly happy to go out wearing in public. And when you patch an argument, I mean, if you think of, for example, with physics, you've got quantum mechanics on one hand, and you've got relativity theory on the other, and they just don't fit together. But you might you know, take another piece of argument from somewhere else. There's another shirt that I had previously, and I say, okay, well, I'm going to take this bit of cloth here, and I can use that. If I have a needle somewhere, so excuse me. I can take this and I can patch my argument, and I don't complain that you know, my patch just doesn't look right. I don't complain that, you know, it's from a different piece of material. I have one piece of science that comes from quantum mechanics and one piece of science that comes from relativity, and they don't really go together. But as long as, you know, it covers the gaps we want to cover, then we're happy for that to happen. So this is the way coherentism works. There you go. Right. Anyway, that's our analogy. Unfortunately, coherentism gives us a problem, which is to say, with foundationalism, I can trace things down, and this is certain because this is definitely connected to this, which is definitely connected to this, which is connected to this, and no one can possibly disagree with this, and so the entire thing stands. Now, with coherentism, I have these ideas that hang together, but someone else can wear a different shirt, and their shirt also hangs together. And the two different shirts, no one claims that this thread of self-consistent ideas is necessarily connected to reality. I can come up with a whole network or patchwork of self-consistent ideas, which, while being self-consistent, may nonetheless be detached from reality. And so two people can come with two completely distinct, self-consistent sets of ideas. And this one makes no sense viewed through this lens, and this one makes no sense viewed through this lens. And they say, well, how do we connect? Because here we have some common ground on which we can speak. Whereas two people wearing two completely different shirts may not have a common ground in which to actually connect with each other. So let me tell you, for example, two stories, because what we have to do is we look at our network of ideas and we say, okay, which one are we going to go with? Which one seems more reasonable? So I'm going to tell you two stories. Okay. Story number one. There was a university lecturer, and he was a complete nutcase. Now, this didn't quite seem to mesh. You know, everyone says, yes, he's a real proper academic, but he was a Fruit Loop who came in with a pair of scissors and cut up his own clothes on camera. Now, there's another story that goes with this that says, he wasn't a university lecturer, really. This is just an elaborate hoax. Okay. Story one says he claimed to be an experimental physicist, but he also claimed to be employed by social work. And somehow there's a hole in this story somewhere. Whereas there's another story that says, actually, he's an actor. This is consistent. This holds together. This makes sense. It's an actor. It's a hoax. Whereas our other story seems to have some holes in it. Okay. He said at the beginning that he was a Christian, but he's also an iconoclast who just has some pretty crazy ideas about truth and meaning and reality. And Christians aren't like that. However, if this entire thing is set up as a joke, then this makes sense. Okay. Social work. He's officially on Faculty of Social Work faculty member. So they tell us. So it says in the prospectus. But he doesn't have a web page on Faculty of Social Sciences. You can go to the faculty site. He's not there. That doesn't quite make sense. But of course, if he's an actor, it makes perfect sense. He says he's got qualifications as a scientist, and he says he's got qualifications as a theologian. And we know, because we're not stupid, that you don't get scientists who then go and study theology, because science and religion are different. Science is done by sensible, realistic people, and religion is done by crazy people. And we've already established that he's a nutcase, but this doesn't make sense. Whereas story two, of course, this is just this is a piece of social science research. David Palmer came up with the idea. He pitched it to me. I'm an actor. I work for a local agency, and he said, "Let's see how far we can push this. Let's see if the students are really gullible. So while we're doing the Common Core course, we can also do a piece of research which we can publish later, and just see how crazy we can be. What insane ideas about there is no reality and there is no truth and ontological blur, long words. Right? Let's see what we can throw at them before someone says, hang on, you guys are just yanking our chain." So here we go. This this story really, it's coherent. I mean, this hangs together, and this story, let's be honest, it's not very coherent. It's got more plot holes than you can imagine. Moreover, this guy's teaching Common Core, but he's not actually a professor. He never even claimed to be a professor, right? He's got a PhD, he's a doctor, but he's not a professor. And the University of Hong Kong says that you need to be a professor to teach Common Core. That doesn't work unless he's not actually a professor. He's also not actually a teacher, right? He's just a guy that David Palmer met, and they said, let's try and do this. And so I normally I'd like to tell you this like face to face, but because of the pandemic, I've got to do it on video, and I feel a real schmuck for doing this on video because, like, for the last 10 weeks, you've been great, and it's kind of difficult to have to say this just to a webcam, but I'm sorry, I'm not actually an academic. I don't have any of the qualifications. I just, David said we should do it, and it's funny, and we're going to write this up afterwards, provided we get all your consent and ethical things. But yeah, I don't know anything about philosophy, really. I'm just an actor. So here are our two stories. Which of these two stories hangs together? Now, the problem that we face is there are too many ways to be wrong. Duham and Quine said, our statements about the external world face the tribunal of sense experience, not individually, but only as a corporate body, right? One individual fact on its own, like one individual thread in a shirt, doesn't stand there on its own. It's woven into this big picture, big tapestry of other threads. And one thread is only there and held in place by all the other threads, but all the other threads are only there and held in place by the first thread. And we can't take one single thread and say, does this work? We have to take the entire thing as a whole. Now, this then means that for any given set of observations, there's an infinite number of ways, infinite number of theories that we can come up with that would be consistent with that. One set of theories is, I really am a scientist and a theologian, and another one is, I really am an actor. And both of these theories are consistent with the finite set of observations that you have. So let's give an example of this. So here are my children, several years ago now. They're bigger than that. And here are all the animals that they enjoy playing with. Here is Noah's Ark. Here is a giraffe, and a cow, and a Parasaurolophus, and a dragon, and a Dimetrodon, and all sorts of things. So here we go. Now, if you have a cow, this is how you and I would look at a cow. My 4-year-old son, however, looks at a cow like this because 4-year-old boy. And he made an observation. He noticed that all of the boy animals looked like this, and all of the girl animals did not. And he noticed that about half of his animals were boys and half his animals were girls. Good. Except he then noticed that when he was looking at his dinosaurs, which I would look at like this, Kentrosaurus, and my son would look at like this, he noticed that all of the dinosaurs looked like this. And so he said, Daddy, big discovery, all dinosaurs are girls. Now, this claim is consistent with the observed facts. So what we did is what any good father would do. We'd go and get a book on how to sex reptiles. And we look at what a reptile looks like if you look at it like this. And we would realize that even if a dinosaur had a penis, you might not see it. In fact, if you dig deeper, you'd realize that even if a dinosaur was a boy, it might not have a penis, particularly the ones that are more closely related to birds. But here we go. Just because it doesn't have an obvious penis does not mean that the dinosaur is a girl. So, fix that one. Sometime later, my son was playing with a pirate, and pirates look like this. And you can tell that it's a boy pirate because it's wearing blue, because toys. And of course, if you're a 4-year-old boy, this is how you look at pirates. And my son came up with an amazing discovery. I might look at that and say, oh, actually it's wearing blue, but it's a girl pirate. My son and you might be able to see where this is going, came to the conclusion, Daddy, my pirate's a dinosaur. Because it's a boy, because it's wearing a blue jumper, and yet you can't see its penis. Therefore, dinosaur. So there are a number of different theories one could construct, like you can be a girl and still wear a blue t-shirt, or sometimes doll manufacturers don't necessarily go the whole hog with being anatomically correct, or this pirate is a dinosaur. All three of these theories are consistent with the facts. So faced with a set of theories and new facts that we are adding, when these new facts don't fit with our multiple statements within our theory, we have to decide which of these statements we're going to hold on to and which of them we're going to abandon. And there is nothing within the theory itself, and there is nothing within the new facts that we are adding, which require us to hold on to one particular statement or abandon another one. So, for example, we could hold on to the fact that toys are anatomically accurate. It's true for all the dinosaurs. They've got really good details on the anatomies, so we can hold on to that idea. Or we could hold on to the idea that boys wear blue t-shirts and this is the way things work. Or we could reject that idea. Or we could hold on to the idea that this pirate doll is human. Or we could reject that idea. But there is nothing in the facts that are presented to us which require us to pick one or other fact to jettison. So the facts that we choose, or the claims or the statements that we choose to hold on to, is called a hard core. So we have within our theory, we've got this whole network of different ideas, and there are some that we say this one we are holding on to above all else, and there are some around the edge that we say we're willing to tweak that one. This one will tweak, this one will throw out, these ones will reconnect differently, and this one we're going to hold on to. So these are called hard cores, and different disciplines have different hard cores. All areas of human thought have these hard cores, and different ways of thinking don't have the same hard core. And in fact, you can identify which particular discipline or which particular area of endeavor you're looking at by identifying what its hard core is. So, for example, consider the universe follows rules, right? If there is someone who says the universe follows rules and they hold on to that in the same way as my son holds on to the idea that this toy is anatomically correct, right? He holds on to this idea and he'll shift everything else in his thinking, but this is the one he's holding on to. If someone says the universe follows rules, what are they? They're a natural scientist, right? There is nothing that you can observe in natural science that will change someone's belief in this, which is to say, that will change a scientist's belief in this, right? Now, you might observe something and they say, oh, we had our previous laws were an approximation of what the actual laws are. You might observe something and say, oh, okay, the previous laws we had were wrong. These are the new type of laws that we should be looking at. They might look at it and say, oh, okay, well, when we were talking about deterministic laws, we should be talking about indeterministic laws or statistical laws, right? They might say, oh, well, we don't know what the law is. We need more research. But they're never going to turn around and say the universe doesn't follow rules. So this is a hard core of science, and there is nothing you can do that will stop a scientist from believing that without them stopping being a scientist. So how about if someone says the greatest good is served by the individual maximizing profit? What are they? They're a capitalist. They're a free market capitalist. And they will hold on to this. They will change everything else in their worldview before they change this, right? You say, but this causes babies to die. And they say, well, yes, clearly the greatest good is served by something which causes babies to die. You say, yes, but this leads to great inequality. And they say, fine, clearly great inequality is good. They will believe anything else before they abandon this idea. They cannot abandon this idea before they stop being a free market capitalist. This is a hard call. How about God is good, right? This is a view held by Christians, right? You can't abandon this view without abandoning being a Christian, right? You say, well, babies die. How can a loving, all-powerful God allow babies to die? And you can say, well, God is, his goodness is above anything we can understand. His thoughts are beyond our thoughts. We might need to change what it means by good. We might not understand what goodness means. There might be different aspects of it. It might be good in the hereafter. They will come up with any number of different ideas that they can tweak around the edges before they abandon this hardcore idea. Now, if you say, this is everything that's wrong with religion, this is blind faith, well, we have exactly the same going on in science, in as much as scientists hold that the universe follows rules. That too then would be absolute blind faith. And if having a hard core is what makes it a religion, then scientists have a religion. Indeed, science is a religion. Now, we would argue that having a hard core isn't what makes something a religion, because all worldviews have hard cores, and we wouldn't argue that all worldviews are religions. But we can see this going on here time and again. So in this lecture then, we've looked at the ways that we put information together, namely foundationalism and coherentism. In the next lecture, we're going to look at how we actually get the bits of information in the first place to put together.